Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Hope you're all doing fine. Later on I'll tell you about a day trip we had to the Peak District National Park. We visited a couple of villages on the Staffordshire and Derbyshire border. But first off, I've picked up a few CDs from charity shops and these were all £1 or less. Okay, first up we've got DREADZONE and Second Light, and this is on the Virgin label. And it's their second album, came out in 1995. My interest was piqued as they include three ex-members of Big Audio Dynamite, namely Dan Donovan on keyboards, Leo Williams on bass and Greg Roberts on drums. It's an ambitious release which takes forward the samples heavy sound of Big Audio Dynamite. Michael Powell is by far my favourite film director, and so I particularly like the fact that they chose some samples from his film A Canterbury Tale for the track of the same name. Many of the tracks on this album work as a celebration of British cultural history, from classical music through folk music and even through to imported sounds of dub reggae and Indian music. It's a stunning production. The only thing slightly letting it down for me is the lack of a distinctive vocalist. Next we've got KRIS DREVER and the album Black Water on Reveal. And this was his first solo album. He's a Scottish folk musician. I think this came out in 2006. I know him mainly for his work with the folk trio Lau. And if you ever get the chance to see Lau live, just grab a chance because it's they're really put on a fantastic performance. Drever's Scottish accent and beautiful tenor voice are a joy here. The traditional folk song Patrick Spence is a ballad telling the tragic story of a sailor's demise in a winter storm. Another traditional song, Braw Sailing on the Sea, includes gorgeous harmony vocals from Kate Rusby. And you also get some songs by contemporary songwriters, best being Boo Hewadine's Harvest Gypsies. You may remember him from the 80s pop band The Bible. Donald Shaw's harmonium and Andy Cutting's accordion add an extra level of mournfulness to some of the ballads. And moving on, we've got 18-Wheeler and Year Zero. And this was put out on the Creation record label. They were a Scottish indie rock band that recorded 3 albums for Creation in the 1990s, and Year Zero is the last of these. The first 2 albums came across to me like a feistier teenage fan club with slightly screechy upfront guitar in a Dinosaur Jr. style, and Year Zero shows noticeable progression on that sound. The songwriting is in a more 60s psych pop style, but making full use of modern studio technology. To my ears, it does sound a little overproduced at times, and also there are some dated dance rhythms. But Stay should have been a big hit single, and the yearning vocals remind me on this track a little of the Monkees' Porpoise song. Another highlight is Grease, which evokes progressive 60s sunshine pop and explodes at the end into a string-drenched drone. And it's an album that's ripe for reappraisal. Okay, we've got Blade Runner by Vangelis on the East-West label. And this is a film soundtrack, of course. I first saw the movie Blade Runner upon its release, and I can remember being blown away by the set design for a near-future Los Angeles. And the actors' performances also impressed, especially the so-called rogue replicants. They were genetically designed androids which start to feel human emotions. Most impressive of all, though, was the sombre music of Vangelis, which fitted perfectly alongside the action on the screen. Rachel's song, for example, has an achingly beautiful wailing female vocal, hinting at the inner turmoil that the character is feeling as she tries to understand human emotions. The epic end titles sends shivers down my spine, even without the visual accompaniment. And the CD ends with Tears in Rain, Rutger Hauer's deaf soliloquy over swathes of synthesizers evoking the vastness of the universe. This is an interesting one. Malcolm McLaren and the BOOTZILLA Orchestra, and the album's Waltz, Darling. And this was put out on the Epic label. And it was his fourth album, came out in 1989. McLaren was always an instigator of ideas and surrounded himself with musicians to bring his vision to life. On this occasion, it's a mishmash of classical music and house music, and you may think he's lost his marbles here, but actually it works magnificently. Amongst the highlights is House of the Blue Danube, which takes Johann Strauss's Blue Danube Waltz as its starting point, then adds a Frankie Goes to Hollywood style bass provided by none other than bassist Bootsy Collins, as well as a jazz rock guitar solo from Jeff Beck. The final track, I Like You in Velvet, with a spoken word vocal by McLaren, is a thing of beauty. The line, "It's you I love, not your frock," has a real emotional punch. Next we've got TELSTAR, Ponies and Voices from the New Music, and this was put out on the Fire label, and it's the second of their two albums which came out in the mid-1990s. There's a link here actually to fellow Scottish band 18 Wheeler that I just showed, as David Keenan appeared on 18 Wheeler's first album before departing to form the more experimental Telstar Ponies. It took a few listens, I must say, to fully appreciate this album, but I absolutely love it now. The sound is hard to describe as it covers so many bases. There's a mix here of ambient noise, sonic youth-style bursts of guitar, and there's a couple of excursions into Celtic folk, and I can also hear influences from the more experimental, spacey, progressive rock bands of the 1970s. Thinking maybe of a Gong. The first thing that really hit home for me was the explosive guitar solos on Shizuka and A Feather on the Breath. The latter solo actually made me think of Richard Thompson's solo on Fairport Convention's Sloth. The 13-minute Does Your Heart Have Wings does test your patience a bit with long quiet passages and whispered vocals. But it's interspersed with explosions of electric guitar which do help. Brewery of Eggshells strays into pagan-inspired Celtic folk, and it's decidedly creepy. Song of Anne Suze, with its repetitive piano motif and haunting tin whistle, is the highlight of the album for me, and that segues into La Vienna, with Gregorian chants sounding like the wailing vocals of the dead. It's a simply stunning and overwhelming conclusion to this ambitious double album, and it deserves to be reissued and rediscovered. David Keenan, by the way, went on to work primarily as a music journalist and more latterly as a novelist, and a book of his music journalism called Volcanic Tongue was published earlier this year, and I've sampled some of the book, been well impressed, and have gone ahead and ordered it. Okay, as mentioned at the start of the video, we had a day out in the Staffordshire, Derbyshire border area, and we visited the villages of Tissington and Ilam. Tissington is dominated by Tissington Hall, which dates back to the early 17th century, and St Mary's Church, which sits nearby on a small hill, dates back even earlier to the 12th century. We also had a very pleasant lunch at a place called Herbert's Fine English Tea Rooms. In the afternoon we went on to the nearby village of Ilam, and the first thing you notice there is the imposing Ilam Cross. It's a Gothic style obelisk which was built by a wealthy landowner as a memorial to his dead wife. This wealthy landowner also is responsible for building the 19th century cottages near to the cross, and they have a look like they've been transplanted direct from the Swiss Alps. If you're interested, just stick around for a couple of minutes to see some of the photos I took of the day. If not, take care, and I'll see you again soon.